And for me, it wasn't until I learned, like, hey, having emotions is normal. And I am probably a more emotional person than the person sitting next to me. That doesn't mean I'm bad. That doesn't mean I'm weird. That doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means I have to feel those emotions, let them out, and move through versus stuffing them down and creating a vibration and a resonance in my body that then breeds dis-ease or disease.
Thank you so much for joining us on another awesome episode of Bioenergetic Beats. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And this episode is brought to you today by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency better based life in your hands and on your wrist. Make sure to stick to the very, very end because we have an amazing giveaway, but you're not going to want to miss one word out of my next guest's mouth anyway. So you're going to stay tuned. I guarantee it. With that being said, let's welcome Helen Armstrong to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So most folks, when we're talking about, today's topic is cellular memory of emotions and trauma, one of my favorite subjects in the whole wide world, because so many people, especially like in the functional practitioner world, or even, typical MDs, are focused on treatment and the body only. And that's what I love about the Nikki and the biofield and
Right.
the emotions, right? And trauma. Like there's juicier pieces that we can usually get to shift to have bigger health wins, right? But we just aren't talking about it enough. So tell me, most people I know who kind of get into this world have a little bit of pain to purpose story. So tell us kind of how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually in corporate America for 27 years. I was an HR executive in banking. And kind of unbeknownst to me was a huge empath, just picking up all of the vibration and the frequency of everybody around me. And people were on a daily basis coming and kind of dumping their problems and issues on my doorstep. And I found myself kind of taking those things on and absorbing other people's energy, absorbing their pain, absorbing their confusion, which ultimately resulted for me in a number of different health issues. I also hid a lot of, kind of my interest in frequency, vibration, emotions to fit in and fit this corporate mold of being buttoned up and, not talking about things that I thought would upset people or that they might not want to know about. And so for me, it was a health crisis and a personality crisis around really shutting down and hiding who I truly was. So I got into this work of kind of emotional work, trauma work based on my own history, my own past. I had an eating disorder as a child, or not even a child, as a teen and as an adult. Wanted to work through some of those things, wanted to work through thyroid issues, weight issues, overall adrenal fatigue, metabolism issues. I could go on and on and on and on. And so I did a lot of the traditional medicine stuff. It didn't work for me. I then found myself following more of a functional medicine path. Somebody very close to me had Lyme disease, chronic fatigue syndrome. And so on that journey with them, I started to do a lot of the things to detox and clean myself up. But it really wasn't until I looked at the emotional trauma that I had in my life, or the emotions I was taking on for people, or things I was stuffing down, that was really the game changer for me.
Oh, absolutely. And it's heartbreaking what we've done to the feminine, especially in like the corporate world. There's, no emotions allowed. We have to kind of suit up and act like a man. And we wonder why, we're so much more susceptible to autoimmune and chronic health issues and all these things. And I'm so glad that these conversations are happening, because we are not, hairless men. We're different, and emotions are our superpower, right? They're not something to be suppressed and hidden away.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty, I was kind of told to, I also grew up with British parents who were very,
Oh, even stiff upper lip.
yep, so, be quiet, sit still, stop crying, get out there, do what you need to do. And for me, it wasn't until I learned, like, hey, having emotions is normal. And I am probably a more emotional person than the person sitting next to me. That doesn't mean I'm bad. That doesn't mean I'm weird. That doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means I have to feel those emotions, let them out, and move through versus stuffing them down and creating a vibration and a resonance in my body that then breeds dis-ease or disease.
Absolutely. One of the last new upgrades to the Nikki is they've always had a stress and anxiety code, but then they recently put in an emotions code. And I can't even tell you what a game changer it's been of kind of helping even out that vibration, because, we're living in a world that is way beyond stressful than what our bodies are made to handle on a long-term basis, right? So having some of these tools that can kind of help balance that out, it really gives us an edge. But I can't wait to dive in deeper in the second part of this talk of like how some of the tools and the things that you do to kind of help support and express emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I love about the work I do is it doesn't have to be painful. Like you don't have to relive the trauma. It's kind of what is the emotion that you have trapped and stuffed down? What is the frequency of that emotion, and how do we pull it out and remove it so that you can get to a place of balance and homeostasis? I mean, at the end of the day, you're totally right. We're going to be knocked off kilter every day. We can't stop that. There's always going to be, but how do you kind of come back to a place of neutral and balance faster? And in a way that works for you.
Absolutely. On that note, this is a great spot. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive deeper into cellular memory and emotions and emotions of trauma. And yeah, hopefully get some nice little nuggets on how she works with people and how we on an everyday basis can befriend our emotions and work with them in the way that we were meant to, instead of stuffing them down and getting disease. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Nikki Plus Line is the next generation of Wave 1 technology referred to in this testimonial.
With the Wave device, have you been able to get back to yoga?
I have, yes. Not even just teaching, but like my own practice. That was I remember so clearly. I went to a class last year and I wasn't even able to do like a basic pose because my body was in so much pain. And that's not something I've ever experienced before. I'm sorry, I'm getting like really emotional thinking about this. But it is really hard to have things that like you almost take for granted in your daily life, and then suddenly to just completely lose the ability to have those things anymore. So it almost in a way is like there are silver linings to everything, and that is a silver lining, is just like being grateful for so many of the basic things that we often don't even give a second thought to. So short answer, yes.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are Nikki.com.
Fantastic. Welcome back. I'm super excited. I'd love to jump into this other part. So tell us a little bit more about how you do work with people, and what is the purpose of emotions, and what can we learn from trauma? All the big questions.
Well, I'll start with I co own a holistic healing clinic, and people show up most of the time with a physical ailment or physical issue. And we use muscle testing and applied kinesiology to kind of tap in and understand what is the root of this issue. So, people show up with gut things, autoimmune, and more. And then we'll tap into where did this start? Did it start on the physical? Did you catch a cold and something or did it start on a frequency level or energetic level that has kind of been sitting in your body, resonating for perhaps years that you don't even know, right? We use 10% of our brain, 90% of our brain is just kind of running the circuitry of the computer without us even knowing that it's trapped there. So kind of people peel off and come and see me when they're like, well, your business partner, Jen, says I have an emotional thing going on, but yes, I think that's true, or I don't know what it is. Help me figure it out. So the place I typically start with people is using a technique called the emotion code, which was developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson. So I start there, and then I do some other stuff and kind of put my own spin on it. But the general concept is that emotions, trauma have a vibratory frequency, and your audience is the perfect audience to kind of understand that and tap into that. So if you think about it, when something happens to us, and it could be a big trauma or it could be a small trauma, we don't really judge. A lot of people show up and they're like, well, nothing bad has ever really happened to me. And when you tap in, it could be that, when they were 5, their parents told them to sit down and be quiet. They felt, abandoned, or they felt not heard. And so they took that emotion of, let's just go with abandoned, took that emotion, didn't know what to do with it, and stuffed it down in their body. And the way that I describe that to people is, it's kind of like a balloon. So you have a balloon full of air, and if you're like, oh, I feel abandoned, that's an emotion, I'm just going to feel it, process it, and move it through, it's gone. But most of the time we take it and we go, oh, I don't want to feel this, it's uncomfortable, or I don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to take this balloon and I'm going to push it down. And the analogy I use is pushing it underwater. So I don't know if you've ever taken a balloon and tried to push it under. It's really hard, right? So you are using energy, calories, even unbeknownst to you, to push these emotions down and keep them at bay. So again, like that could be, that abandonment as a kid. It could be that you had, terror shows up a lot for people. That tends to sit on people's chests, on their hearts. And all of those emotions have a vibration and a frequency that are two things. One, typically they're lower vibrations, and they're not vibrations that are promoting health and healing. Or they can also be frenetic emotions like anxiety, angst, which then keep you in a constant state of fight or flight, where you're not able to use your body and your healing ability to heal in the way it's meant to heal. So we use muscle testing. And the amazing, cool thing about this is, because it's frequency and energy, we can do it in person in our healing clinic, or we can do it remotely. So, as we're sitting here, I can tap into your frequency and your vibration to assess what's going on. And so we'll either use, kinesiology, hand muscle testing, or sometimes I'll use a pendulum to tap in and literally ask your body, what are the trapped emotions? So using the emotion code, there's a list of 60 different emotions, and your body knows, your innate wisdom and your innate knowledge that we all have has a muscle memory, right? That's the cellular memory. So your body knows, it's just you may have forgotten, or it may not be sitting in your conscious mind. So we tap into that innate wisdom and knowledge that you have to kind of say, hey, what's going on, or what are you trying to push below the surface and hide from yourself that we want to lift up, raise that balloon, pop it with a pin, and stop that frequency and vibration from vibrating and buzzing in your body.
I think that's the beautiful part about this work, because I mean, it's been shown that like talk therapy has a tendency to keep people kind of stuck in the trauma, stuck in fight or flight. And these more gentler ways in, I found, are just so beautiful because, like, for me, I was worried that I was never going to get completely healed because I couldn't remember the trauma, because the trauma was so, now that all this stuff has come to light, my ACE score is through the roof. It's no wonder I had 3 autoimmune diseases and Lyme disease and mold toxicity and 100 pounds overweight, but there was a long period of time where my body suppressed that from me, and I was like, God, what, how am I going to heal this if I don't know what it is that I'm being affected by? But, stuff like the body code, not, tapping into my body's wisdom instead of, my memory, like it was such a beautiful, gentle way in, and then to be able to clear these things. And I did body code for a while. I need to get back into it. Thank you for reminding me. But it was always so beautiful when I would work with clients. And then after I'd get done going through and I would say, oh, I got some abandonment in your heart, around the age of 4. And then they just start to cry. And like every single time. And I'm just like, oh, bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the beauty of it is, what I love is we can keep asking questions. And a lot of times we don't even need to know.
Right.
Or you might not be ready to know, right? Your body is ready to physically release it. The number of people I've had, I had somebody a couple months ago and I was like, something happened to you at 19. It was a male. And they're like, no, nothing's coming to mind. And then I, asked, do we need to know anything else? The answer I got was no. And so we removed it, and the person was like, oh, I don't know what you just did, but I feel 50 pounds lighter, or wow, this heaviness was lifted off my chest. And then, 2 hours later, the woman called me and she's like, oh my gosh, could it be blah, blah, blah? And I muscle tested and I'm like, yep, bingo. Yeah. But we didn't need to know in the session at the time. Or the flip side of that, kind of where you're going, is people will be like, something happened to you when you're 5. Do you know what it is? And all of a sudden it's like, boom, this memory that they had completely forgotten or pushed down comes to the surface. And to your point, we don't have to relive it. We don't have to talk through it. And I'm with you. I mean, I did talk therapy for years, but it wasn't until I did this work, because we can we're amazing as humans at compartmentalizing. I'm like, oh, I can talk up here and process till I'm blue in the face. But the reality is, it's about what is stuck cellularly in my body and the memory that my body has that needs to be released, not the tapes in my head.
Absolutely. We're starting to find out a lot about generational cellular trauma, and
Yeah.
this stuff actually being passed down through generations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that is huge. And especially, I would say, for us as for women in particular, the thing that shows up almost for everybody is this worthiness threat,
Oh,
feeling worthy. And then I'm always, well, muscle test, is this yours? Is this? And it's like, nope, it's not yours. It's someone else's. And then did you absorb it? Nope, it's inherited. And the fascinating piece of this is, most of the time it's inherited 5 to 10 generations back. So, there's somebody 10 generations ago that didn't feel worthy or had something happen to them, and they have stored that emotion and that trauma and have passed it down through their cellular memory, their DNA. And the way I describe it to people, it's like you came in carrying this really heavy backpack and you didn't even know. And the other thing I'll say about that is, if you inherited a vibration, you're born with that, so it feels like it's yours.
right.
You have to have conversations with people about, it feels like it's yours because you've been carrying it in your backpack for the past 25, 50, however many years. And the reality, it's not yours. So let's take off the backpack and lay that down. And who knows what's possible.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to help clear stuff that's not yours as well. And we had talked about that. The folks with chronic illness also have a tendency to be a little bit more on the empathic, compassionate side of taking on others. They actually are seeing this now in DNA. You know, they can look at certain SNPs and say you're more susceptible to taking on other people's energy, like wrap your brain around that. That's like amazing to me. But you know, it was eye-opening to find out how much I was taking on from the people around me and how little of it was actually my own. Like that was completely
Yeah.
mind.
I think that same thing, massive empath. And, for me, it wasn't until my late 30s, early 40s, I'm 51, that somebody was like, "Oh, you're an empath." And I'm like, what? I go back and I think about it, anytime I would walk into a room with a lot of people, my mood would immediately change. Or if there was somebody upset that I was talking to, I would get upset. Um, for me, I have struggled with weight my whole life, with eating disorders. Some of it was, how can I control what I eat and be regimented because I can't deal with all these emotions. But most of the time it was, how do I create a barrier to protect myself from all of these emotions? So I didn't even know I was doing it. I was, one, sometimes creating a barrier, or two, I got to make myself bigger to take on all of these emotions that I'm feeling. Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't until I realized, holy moly, I'm holding, right? Hundreds of pounds of emotions for people, and it's not my job to hold it. So how can I have compassion and help people without taking it on? And this work has helped with that.
Absolutely. So if can you give us any little nuggets that our folks can kind of start putting in practice today of like helping them? I don't know, it's such a big question. Like some regulating their emotions. What are, besides, like using the Nikki on emotions, what is another little nugget that you can give people to help them regulate their emotions?
Well, I mean, one thing I do, box breathing is massive, right? I'm sure you guys talk a lot about the parasympathetic nervous system and kind of coming back into out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. So box breathing, which is the simple, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. I do that a lot when I find myself getting dysregulated. But the other thing is, again, you have this innate wisdom and knowledge. So a lot of times I find myself driving to the healing clinic and I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to throw up, or I'm really sad all of a sudden. And I will literally just ask myself, is this emotion, is this mine? And more often than not, I will get the answer. I will just ping in my head, my intuition, just my general sense of wisdom and knowledge will say no. And then I say, okay, thank you for the information. I release this and let it go. That's a huge way for me to feel better. I mean, the other things I do are kind of clearing my energy, envisioning a shower coming over me and kind of clearing the energy from me and pulling it out of my overall nervous system. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in just in setting our intentions and stopping our kind of monkey minds from taking over.
We can also learn a lot from Miss Taylor Swift, and shake it off.
Off,
That's another thing that I do to help regulate my nervous system. Because if you see animals, especially in the wild, right, they have a little kerfuffle and then they shake it off and then they go back to eating or doing what they were doing. They don't sit there and spin in the emotion.
Your humans are literally one of the only animals that take, trap, and lock emotions. You are 100% right. Watch a dog, watch even a rabbit being chased by a fox. It will stop, shake it off, shake off the trauma of the moment, and move on. They're not cowering in the corner. They're like, all right, it's good. I'm not in danger anymore. I'm gonna shake it off and move on and go find my next carrot.
So came to the shameless plug time of the show. So if people wanted to know more about you, like what are you putting out there right now? How can they find you?
Yeah. So you can find our healing clinic at www.divinehealthalliance.com. And the work I do is called emotional and energetic clearing. So again, it works in person, but it is equally effective and sometimes even more effective remotely. So I work with a ton of people remotely to clear energy, to help bring people back. And what I like to do, an initial session, is cast the net pretty wide and say, like, what are the big heavy hitter emotions that are stopping you from living your highest, most vibrant life, and start with those. Typically, those are the ones that are keeping people buzzy or keeping them stuck with fear, and bringing those to the surface, clearing them out. And then we may, do follow-up set. Unfortunately, most of us have hundreds of trapped emotions, but there are definitely some big ones that have the most impact on us that are typically keeping us stuck.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And also make sure to check out wearenikki.com/podcast and enter in BioBeats to get 10% off your Nikki. And because we really love our customers, the way we show appreciation is we give away a Nikki device and a wellness set of frequency after every show. That's a $598 value. So make sure to go to the show notes to check out Helen and how to find out and work with her, and then also how to find out to enter our contest. Good luck to you. Get excited. Are you excited? We have January's winners. All right, let's say a big congratulations to Amy P, Brennan A, Cindy K, and Marianne D. You have won the Nikki device with the Wellness Suite of Frequencies valued at $598. I wear mine daily and have for the past 2 years. I don't go anywhere without my Nikki. I hope you enjoy yours as much as I've enjoyed mine. Congratulations. And to everyone else who didn't win, continue to share, like, subscribe, listen in, and thanks for joining us, and make sure to have a healthy day.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
I have struggled with sleep for a while, so I do know that it affects everything, but having insomnia, that's something that I would never wish upon anyone. Like, until you don't realize how important sleep is until you lose it. And when you lose it, you really, really realize how much it affects everything. It affects everything within the next day. And then a few days after that, it just like, it creates this vicious cycle that you can't get out of. And so that was huge for me. And that was one of my biggest priorities of 2022, is trying to get my sleep back on track, and at least just sleeping for a few hours every single night, or not waking up every hour on the hour. And the very first day that I wore the device, I slept through the night, which is amazing.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. wearenikki.com.
Hey, I'm Steve. I'm an engineer, a biohacker, and a dad, and I love my Nikki. I use 3 different programs on this one mostly. In the mornings, I run Energy Boost, which honestly is about the equivalent of a cup of coffee. I still have my coffee, but this does make a difference. After work, I run my stress and anxiety program, and that takes me from being like, task mode from work to really kind of chilled out dad mode, which is nice. And occasionally when I need it, I run the pain program as well. I actually tore my ACL last September, middle of September, and I was running again by middle of October. No surgery, no therapy, just the pain program once a day. So I've worked with red light therapy for several years now, and like I said, this is just about my favorite because it is so easy to use. I just put it on my wrist in the morning, run it all day, don't even notice it's there except for how I feel. So I love it.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. wearenikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Freemedica. Freemedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.